Tonight's story takes you into one of the most mysterious and dangerous worlds of the past, the medieval night. When the sun disappeared behind crooked rooftops and narrow streets, a new world awakened. Taverns boiled with noise and heat, watchmen crept through twisting alleys, lovers hid in secret corners, thieves moved across rooftops, wolves prowled outside the gates, and fear shaped every breath until dawn returned. This is a journey through chaos, shadows, and quiet courage, told hour by hour as the town struggles through one unforgettable night. Welcome to History to Relax, where you can rest, breathe deeply, and drift into the past one calm step at a time. If you enjoy these stories, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a message in the comments telling me where in the world you're listening from. Your support helps this channel grow and brings more relaxing history journeys to life. Now find a comfortable position, take a slow breath, let your shoulders soften, and allow the night to settle gently around you. Sit back, relax, because our story is about to begin. The day in the town is almost over, and the last light of the sun stretches long across the crooked roofs and narrow streets. The marketplace that only hours ago was full of shouting and movement now begins to grow quiet. Merchants pull heavy wooden shutters across their stalls. Hands that spent the day weighing grain and counting coins now tie knots, close locks, and hide small bags of money under loose floorboards or inside worn leather pouches. The smell in the air changes with the light. During the day, the town smells of bread from the baker's oven, hay from the stables, and sweat from hundreds of bodies pressed together in tight streets. As the sun drops lower, smoke becomes the main scent. Thin threads of it rise from chimneys and open hearths. One by one, small orange glows appear behind shutters and under roof tiles. The town is slowly wrapping itself in firelight. In one tall stone tower near the center of town, a bell hangs waiting. The man in charge of ringing it is an old habit, not a young one. He has climbed these steps so many times that he can do it even when the stairs are dark. When the last edge of the sun touches the distant hills, he pulls the thick rope. The sound travels over the rooftops and through the small alleys. It is not a loud, sharp sound like a modern alarm. It is deep and slow, a voice made of metal and air, calling to everyone inside the walls. The people know what this sound means. Day is over. Night is coming. And night in a medieval town is not simply a darker version of day. It is a different world. In a small house close to the market square, a woman moves quickly, gathering her children inside. She has heard stories all her life about what can happen outside after dark. Her mother told them to her, and her grandmother before that. The stories mix real danger with fear of spirits and demons who might wander in the shadows. She knows that thieves and drunk men are more likely than demons, but she still crosses herself as she closes the door. The heavy wooden bar drops into place with a dull, satisfying thud. She feels safer, but not completely safe. The narrow lanes twist between houses like channels made by running water. In the fading light, they already seem tighter and more secret. The stones of the street are uneven and damp. Water from the day's washing, kitchen scraps, and other less clean things all run together here. In the daytime, people step over it without thinking. At night, when the only light comes from small lamps and the moon, every puddle and shadow feels deeper. Just inside the town gate, a group of men gather around a small table. They are the night watch. Their job is to keep order until morning. Some wear bits of old armor, a dented helmet or a leather jerkin. Others have only thick coats and scarves. Each man carries something he can use as a weapon, a staff, a short sword, or an iron hook fixed to a wooden pole. In the dim light of a single lantern, their faces are lined and tired. They are not heroes from stories. They are poorly paid workers who stand outside when everyone else is going home. They know which taverns are likely to spill trouble into the street. They know the corners where thieves like to wait in silence. They know the sound of a real cry for help, and the different sound of drunk laughter that becomes shouting. They also know that if a group of angry men decides to fight, 6 watchmen with worn weapons will not always be enough to stop it. The captain of the watch, a thick-shouldered man with greying hair, checks the sky. The first stars are just beginning to appear. He gives the order to close the gates. The huge wooden doors move slowly on their hinges. Chains creak. The last farmers who stayed too late hurry inside, leading donkeys or pushing carts. A boy with a bundle of firewood almost gets caught outside, but a guard pulls him through with a rough hand on his shoulder. Then the doors shut. Heavy bars slide into place. For anyone outside the walls, the town now looks like a dark hill with only a few flickering lights. For those inside, the walls feel both protective and trapping. Whatever happens tonight will happen within these stones, with no easy way out. As the light fades, another part of the town wakes up. On a side street near the river, a tavern prepares for night. Its sign hangs from a crooked beam and creaks softly in the wind. The name on the sign is worn with age, but everyone knows the place by the smell and the sound. Warm air full of smoke, ale and cooked meat drifts out every time the door opens. The innkeeper's wife moves between tables, wiping them with a damp cloth. Her husband tests the ale with a quick sip and a frown. One of the barrels is already half gone. It will not be enough for a full night of drinking. Soon the first customers arrive. A pair of apprentices from the weaver's shop enter, their hands rough from pulling threads all day. They are too young to drink as much as they plan to drink, but no one will stop them. A soldier on leave from the nearby lord's manor leans his spear in the corner and sits without asking, as if every chair waits for him. 2 men who spent the day arguing over the price of wool now sit almost side by side, though their shoulders are stiff and they avoid each other's eyes. At first, the noise is soft, a few laughs, the gentle clatter of wooden cups. Murmured talk about work, about the harvest, about who plans to marry whom. The innkeeper moves among them like a careful conductor, keeping the flow of ale smooth and steady. He knows that if people drink too fast, the tavern will turn violent before midnight. If they drink too slowly, they will leave early, and he will earn too little. There is a dangerous balance in the air, and he has learned to feel it. In the upper rooms of the town, life prepares for night in a different way. In a house near the church, a minor official sits at a table covered in parchment. He is writing by candlelight, bending close to see the letters. The wax drips down the candle and forms small yellow hills at its base. He sighs. At this hour his eyes hurt, but the records cannot wait. Rent lists, fines collected, names of men who owe military service. Outside his window he can hear the early sounds of the tavern and distant footsteps on the cobblestones. This mix of order inside and chaos outside is the music of his life. Not far away, the church stands like a quiet giant in the center of town. Its stone walls hold the day's warmth a little longer than the houses around it. A priest walks slowly between the rows of wooden benches. He carries a small lamp that throws long shadows of saints and angels carved in wood and stone. For him, night is a time of both fear and faith. The stories in his books say that demons are more active in the dark hours. They whisper to drunk men. They lead thieves to doors left unlocked. They slip into dreams. He believes this as much as he believes in the saints and in the sound of the morning bell. He also knows that many of the poor will sleep tonight on straw stuffed into corners, sharing space with their animals. Their houses are too small and the walls too thin to keep out all the cold or all the danger. So he whispers a prayer not only for their souls, but for their bodies as well. As the last color drains from the sky, lanterns appear in the streets. In many towns there are rules about this. If you go out at night, you must carry a light. It is not mainly to help you see, but to help others see you. A man walking in the dark with no light is immediately suspicious. Why does he not want to be recognized? Why does he move in shadows when others show their faces? A young man pulls his cloak close and checks the little oil lamp in his hand. He is nervous. He has promised to meet someone in a small lane near the wall. It is not a dangerous meeting, only a secret one. A girl from another household, someone his parents would not approve of. He cannot stay inside. The desire to see her pulls him into the night despite the stories, despite the warnings, despite the watch. The sound of the town changes in these first true minutes of darkness. During the day, noise is wide and spread out. Wagons rumble. People shout from one end of the street to the other. Hammers pound in the smithy. At night, sounds become separate and sharp. A door slams somewhere. A dog barks. Someone laughs too loudly outside the tavern and is quickly shushed. The wind pushes against shutters and makes them flutter with a hollow tone. Every sound feels closer, more personal, as if the town is whispering instead of speaking. The night watchmen begin their slow walk through the streets. Their boots strike the stones in a steady pattern. From time to time, they stop to listen, heads tilted, trying to decide if a distant noise is something they must investigate or something they can safely ignore. They know the tavern will grow louder as the evening lengthens. They know there will be singing, arguments, and perhaps fists. They also know that not every cry in the dark is a true plea for help. Some are just the wild voices of men who have drunk too deeply and want the world to hear their joy or their anger. Yet there is real danger here. In a world without police stations, electric lights, or quick communications, the thin line between order and chaos is made of tired men, dim lamps, and a little fear. The fear is not only for their own safety, it is the fear of being blamed if things go wrong. If a merchant is robbed, if a fight becomes a killing, if a house burns because a drunken man dropped a lamp, the town leaders will look to the watchmen and ask why they did not prevent it. Near the edge of town, close to the old wall, a group of youths gather in a half-ruined courtyard. They are not exactly criminals and not exactly innocent. They are too restless to go home and too poor to drink much in the tavern. They push one another, tell rude jokes, and throw small stones at rats that run along the base of the wall. They know the watch will pass here only once or twice. When the guards have gone, this place will feel like their own small kingdom of shadows. The first true note of chaos in the night is often small. Maybe it is a sharp word exchanged in the tavern between a proud craftsman and a soldier who thinks his uniform makes him better than any common man. Maybe it is a spilled drink that someone refuses to pay for. Maybe it is a song sung off key once too often. Voices rise. Chairs scrape across the floor. The innkeeper's wife feels it before anyone throws a punch. She has seen this many nights. She moves to the door and loosens the bar, just in case she needs to push someone outside quickly. Outside, under the slowly moving clouds, the town watches itself. It does not think, but it feels. The walls feel the drums of feet on the streets. The doors feel the hands that slam them or slip carefully at their latches. The air feels the heat of breath, ale, and anger, and cools again as the wind turns. In the mix of all these things, there is a strange balance. Night is a time of danger, but it is also a time of release. People who held their anger, fear, and hope inside all day now let it spill out, sometimes in songs, sometimes in tears, sometimes in blows. As the first hours of darkness pass, nothing terrible has happened yet. The gate is closed and still. The watch has broken up 2 small arguments and sent the men stumbling home with muttered warnings. The lovers in the lane have met and parted, their hands touching briefly in the shadows before they hurry back to their separate doors. The youths near the wall have grown bored and drifted deeper into the town, looking for something louder, something more exciting. But the night is young. The ale in the tavern is still flowing. The moon is climbing higher, painting the town in cold silver. The line between order and chaos grows thinner every hour that passes. Somewhere beyond the comforting glow of hearths and lamps, the real heart of medieval night is beginning to beat faster. Night settles fully over the town, and with it comes a set of rules that almost everyone knows, even if not everyone follows them. These rules are not written on clean paper or carved into stone. They are remembered through warnings whispered by parents, shouted by guards, and repeated by those who have learned the hard way what happens when you walk in darkness without a light. These rules are known simply as the lantern laws. In many medieval towns, no one is allowed outside after sunset unless they carry a lantern. The lantern can be a simple wooden frame with thin strips of horn or oiled cloth stretched over it. It does not shine brightly, but it glows enough for others to see who walks with it. The idea is simple. A person with a light has little to hide. A person without one must want to stay unseen. And in a town where danger grows with every hour of night, that is reason enough for suspicion. A watchman, walking his route, stops at a corner where two narrow lanes meet. He holds his staff in one hand and his own lantern high in the other. The shifting yellow circle of light reveals a woman hurrying home with a bundle of cloth under her arm. She looks tired, but she also looks nervous. The watchman nods, and she nods back. Her lantern swings at her side. She is following the rules. A moment later, the guard sees something else. A figure slips across the end of the lane without carrying any light at all. Only the faint outline of a cloak and the quick movement of feet can be seen before the darkness swallows the person again. The watchman curses softly. He pushes forward, but by the time he reaches the spot, the figure is gone. Scenes like this happen every night. Some people move without lanterns because they are too poor to buy oil. Others simply do not care for the rules. But most of the time, those who refuse to carry light do so because they do not want to be recognized. They are thieves, gamblers who owe money, or men sneaking to places they should not be. Their footsteps are soft. Their breaths are held. They move quickly until they reach a doorway, an alley, or a back room where the watch does not go if it can avoid it. In the town square, the last few merchants who stayed open too late are finally closing their shutters. One of them, an old man who sells spices and herbs, hangs a small lantern outside his door. He does this every night. He says it is to keep away spirits who dislike light. Others believe he does it because the lantern's glow reminds him of his wife, who died years ago. Whatever the reason, the warm glow remains long after he goes upstairs to sleep. Further down the main street, two young men argue under the dim light of one shared lantern. They both work for a leather worker and spent the day carrying heavy hides soaked in foul-smelling liquids. Their backs ache and their tempers are short. One of them wants to go to the tavern. The other says they should go home before the watch accuses them of troublemaking. Their argument grows louder, and their shadows dance across the stone walls like tangled shapes struggling against each other. A group of watchmen turn the corner. They immediately notice the young men with the raised voices. The watch captain steps forward, his lantern shining on their faces. He asks where they live and why they are not already home. The two men stop arguing and answer quickly, their shoulders dropping in relief when the watch moves on. Even small disputes can draw unwanted attention at night. Near the edge of town, close to a row of stables, an innkeeper's boy stands holding a lantern above his head. He is waiting for a rider who will arrive late from the countryside. The boy's arms are tired from keeping the light raised, but he knows he has to do it. Anyone coming through the dark roads outside the walls needs a light to find the stable gate, and thieves roam the open fields at night. The boy hears rustling in the nearby bushes. His heart beats faster, but he keeps the lantern steady. A moment later, the sound fades, and he lets out a slow breath. In a small lane, a different kind of light glows. A candle burns in the window of a healer. People say she knows herbs better than anyone, and that she can cure fevers, wounds, and poisons. Some also whisper that she knows charms to protect against dark spirits. The candle she keeps in her window is a signal. If someone falls sick during the night, they know where to knock. But it also draws the eyes of those who suspect anyone dealing with herbs of practicing forbidden arts. Tonight, an old man stands outside her door, shivering. His granddaughter has developed a deep, painful cough, and he fears she will not survive until morning. He holds a lantern, but his hand shakes so badly that the flame flickers wildly. The healer hears the knock, opens the door, and pulls him inside before the watch notices him. In the tavern, the noise grows slowly louder. The innkeeper's lamps hang from wooden beams overhead, their warm light glowing through thin sheets of horn. The light is soft, but enough to see by. The lantern laws apply to the streets, not to places where people gather. Inside the tavern, men drink by the glow of these lamps, and their faces look red and lively. For a time, they forget about darkness, rules, and the danger outside. A minstrel in the corner plucks a stringed instrument, playing a tune that many people know. Some hum along, and a few try to sing. Their voices rise and fall like waves. In the back of the room, two women sit with drinks of their own. They do not have lanterns with them. They will borrow a candle from the innkeeper when they leave. They lean close together, talking about the news of the day and the gossip of the town. As they speak, they glance toward the door, where shadows move under the crack of the threshold. Night changes everything, even conversation. Outside the tavern, a pair of watchmen stand guarding the crossroad. Their lanterns cast a weak glow that barely reaches the edges of the space. Beyond that circle, the darkness looks thick enough to swallow a man whole. One watchman nudges the other, pointing down a side street. Someone is moving again without a light. They step forward, but this time the figure does not run. A man emerges from the shadow. His clothes look torn at the sleeves, and he has no lantern. He lifts his hands slowly. He explains that he lost his oil lamp when someone bumped into him. The watchmen exchange glances. They have heard excuses like this before, but the man looks genuinely afraid. They allow him to pass, though they warn him to find a light as soon as possible. As he hurries away, they both know he may not be so lucky next time. The lantern laws shape the night, dividing it into two kinds of people: those who carry light and those who hide from it. But not everyone hides for sinister reasons. In a wealthy household near the center of town, a servant girl slips out quietly from a side door. She wraps her cloak tightly and moves without carrying a lantern. Her steps are silent. She is not a thief. She is simply trying to meet someone she cares about. In a world where love is often controlled by families and traditions, darkness offers the only privacy she can find. As she moves along the wall of the house, she knows she risks being caught by the watch. She also knows that people will assume the worst if they find her out alone without a light. But she continues anyway, guided by the memory of a familiar face waiting somewhere near the empty well at the far end of the street. The lantern laws do not only control people, they also reveal something deeper about medieval life. Darkness is more than a lack of daylight. It is a force that shapes how people act, how they move, and how they fear. Without strong lights or quick help, the night belongs to whoever dares to walk in it. In the quarters of the night watch, a younger guard complains under his breath. He says the lantern rules do not make the town safer. They only make honest people nervous and give thieves something to work around. The captain reminds him that without the laws, the streets would be full of men wandering without purpose, and every shadow would hide a threat. The young guard falls silent, but inside, he wonders about the truth of the rule. He thinks of the woman they saw earlier, walking home with her lantern held low. Her eyes showed real fear, not of spirits, but of people. He wonders if laws can truly protect anyone when darkness itself seems to encourage trouble. As the night deepens, the lanterns burn lower. Oil runs thin. Flames shrink. Even the tavern's warm glow begins to fade slightly. People who were loud earlier start to quiet down. A few drunk men stumble out of the tavern carrying borrowed lanterns to light their way home. Their steps are uneven, and their lanterns swing wildly, throwing twisting shapes across the walls. The night is reaching the moment where order begins to crack. Those who follow the lantern laws head home or stay indoors. Those who ignore the rules move more freely now, hidden deeper in the dark. The watch cannot be everywhere. The streets are filled with places where their lanterns cannot reach, corners that hold more secrets than stories. Somewhere in the distance, a dog begins barking. The sound echoes strangely, bouncing between stone walls. A few hearts quicken. The watchmen stop walking for a moment and listen. The barking turns into a long, low growl. Then it stops suddenly. In the dark silence that follows, the true shape of medieval night begins to emerge. The lanterns may guide the honest and expose the careless, but they cannot chase away every shadow. And in those shadows, the unpredictable spirit of the night waits, ready to rise. The tavern is now the brightest place in the entire town, though its light is still no more than the warm glow of a few hanging lamps and the occasional flare from the kitchen hearth. From the outside, the building looks like a crooked wooden box pressed between two leaning homes. But inside, the tavern feels alive. The noise, the heat, the smells, and the crowded bodies create a world completely different from the cold streets that surround it. Through the open door comes a gust of warm, smoky air, mixed with the scent of roasted onions, spilled ale and sweat. The tavern is packed. Every table is taken, and even the corners are crowded with people too poor to buy more than one drink, but too determined to escape the night's chill to stay home. The walls are stained from years of smoke. The beams overhead are low enough that tall men must duck when they walk. The innkeeper, a thick man with a scar across one cheek, moves behind the counter with surprising speed for someone of his size. His arms are used to lifting barrels and pushing angry men apart, and his voice can fill the entire room when he needs it to. But he uses that voice sparingly. Experience has taught him that if you shout early, people will shout back. If you wait, if you let the tavern warm up on its own, the crowd will settle into a rhythm. Tonight, however, he feels the tension building faster than usual. He senses it in the way people stand close to one another, talking with their faces flushed and their hands already lifting cups to their lips. He sees it in the way some men slap each other's backs a little too hard, their laughter a little too sharp. He hears it in the rising pitch of the minstrel's music as he tries to match the mood of the room. Alehouses in medieval towns were more than places to drink. They were escape rooms for people whose days were filled with hard labor. They were the only warm public spaces for poor families. They were meeting places for travelers, gossip centers for women, and battlegrounds for men carrying grudges. In the tavern, everyone is equal for a moment, until ale decides otherwise. At a long wooden table near the hearth, a group of carpenters sit shoulder to shoulder. They smell of sawdust, pine, and the river where they washed their tools earlier in the day. They laugh loudly, telling stories about a collapsed roof they repaired that morning. One of them boasts that he could rebuild the whole town with his eyes closed. His friends agree, mostly because they have already reached the point of drinking where everything sounds true. Nearby, two merchants sit quietly, each nursing a cup of dark ale. They are not here for the chaos. They are here to listen. Merchants know that taverns are full of loose tongues. A slip of information about a shipment, a rumor of new taxes, or a whisper about a nobleman's debts can be worth more than gold. They sit with calm expressions, blending in as best they can. At the far end of the room, a soldier leans against the wall, holding a metal cup filled to the brim. His clothes are worn, but the faded colors of his coat still mark him as a man who serves the local lord. The soldier drinks in slow, steady sips, his eyes half focused on the crowd. His mind drifts between pride, bitterness, and the comfort of being off duty. When the door swings open and cold air rushes in, he grips his cup tighter, ready to react to trouble if trouble decides to walk inside. Women in the tavern move differently than the men. Some are wives who came to collect their husbands before they lose their wages to the bottom of a cup. Others are servants from nearby houses who stop here after finishing long hours of work. A few are bold enough to drink for their own pleasure, laughing with the men and leaning close to hear whispered stories. The tavern is one of the only places where social lines blur, even if only for a short time. Near the counter, two young men stand arguing. Their voices are not yet angry, but they have reached the level of drink where insults can slip out without thought. One of them slams his cup on the counter, spilling ale over the rim. The innkeeper's wife immediately steps in, placing a new cup between them in a smooth, practiced motion. Her presence is often enough to calm the first spark of trouble. The door opens again, and a burst of wind sweeps across the room. A small group enters: a weaver, a baker's apprentice, and a woman with a long braided scarf. They shake the cold from their clothes and crowd around an empty space near the wall. The weaver asks for ale. The apprentice asks for bread. The woman, tired from working in the dye shop all day, asks only for water. The innkeeper gives her a small smile. Not everyone who enters has coins, but everyone needs a place to warm their hands. The minstrel shifts in his corner, tapping his foot as he plays. His instrument is old and missing one string, but he makes it sing anyway. He sings about brave lovers, about foolish kings, about dragons that hide beneath mountains, and about misfortune that follows men who drink too much. The crowd hums along with the chorus, hands pounding on tables in uneven rhythm. The tavern is reaching its heat. The alehouse heat is not only temperature, it is the rising energy in the room. It is the way laughter blends with muttered curses. It is the way people lean closer, feel braver, speak louder. Alcohol softens fear and sharpens pride. It loosens tongues and stiffens spines. As more cups are emptied, the boundaries between humor and insult grow thin. At one table, a man demands a story from his friend who claims to have fought in a great battle years ago. The storyteller exaggerates with each retelling. 50 enemies become 100, one wound becomes 4, and the sword he once carried becomes as long as a cart. His friends laugh and cheer, even though none of them believe a word. At another table, a pair of brothers sit quietly. They are saving their coins for marriage and cannot afford more than a shared meal. They watch the room carefully, knowing that one wrong move can turn the tavern into a place of danger. They hold their cups with both hands, hoping the night passes without incident. The innkeeper wipes down the counter and glances toward a small wooden door that leads into the storage room. Behind that door rests a single barrel of ale. It is the last full one he has. He had hoped it would last 2 nights, but tonight the tavern is fuller than usual. He thinks about whether to tap into it or hold it back for morning. If the crowd grows any louder, he may need it to calm tempers, or he may wish he had kept it hidden. A sudden shout interrupts the music. One of the carpenters has stood up too quickly, knocking over a bench. The men around him jump to their feet, each convinced they have been pushed. For a moment, the air tightens. The minstrel stops playing. The innkeeper stiffens. Even the fire seems to pause, its flames leaning forward as if waiting. But the tension breaks with quick laughter. The carpenter who fell raises his hands and claims he tripped over his own boots. His friends tease him, pushing him gently back into his seat. The laughter spreads, and the tavern breathes again. Still, the innkeeper feels something in the air, a subtle shift, like the first tremor before a storm. It is not fear, not yet. It is awareness. A reminder that warmth can turn to heat, and heat can turn to fire. Outside, the night watch can hear the tavern from down the street. They know that the louder the tavern becomes, the more likely they will be called to break up a fight or drag a drunk home. They walk slower here, listening carefully. Inside, the crowd grows louder still. Cups clink, boots thump. Voices mix into one growing wave. The alehouse heat is building, rising like steam from the bodies packed tightly together. The smell of sweat deepens. The music turns faster. The room feels smaller, the air heavier. The night outside is cold and empty. But inside this room, a different kind of night is taking shape. One filled with laughter, arguments, stories, songs, and the restless energy of men and women who forget, for a short time, all the burdens that daylight demands. The tavern is the heart of the town at night, and tonight that heart is beating faster. The warmth is giving way to heat, and the first sparks of conflict are beginning to glow beneath the noise. The tavern's noise spills out into the street long before anyone steps through its crooked wooden door. A mix of laughter, stomping boots, and angry shouts leaks through the cracks in the walls, drifting into the night like smoke. The cold air outside makes the sounds sharper, echoing along the narrow lanes and drawing the attention of anyone still wandering under the dim glow of lanterns. Out here, away from the warmth and crowded chaos of the alehouse, the town feels colder and less forgiving. The streets are uneven and dark, lit only by small pools of yellow light from a few lanterns hung over doorways. Each lantern seems to struggle against the heavy shadows pressing in from every side. And in these shadows, the problems born inside the tavern often find their way back into the open air. A few drunk men stumble out of the alehouse, laughing loudly at something none of them will remember in the morning. One of them carries a lantern that swings wildly, making the light dance in crooked circles. The others lean on each other, muttering half-finished songs and stumbling in the direction of home. For now, they are harmless. Most brawls begin not with men like these, but with the ones who walk out silent, stiff-necked, and full of simmering anger. Tonight, one of those men stands just outside the tavern door. His name is known to most of the town. He is a butcher's son, broad in the shoulders and quick to temper. He stands with his arms crossed and his jaw clenched, staring at the cobblestones as if daring them to challenge him. Inside, he argued with a group of men about the price of meat at the market. Voices rose. Insults slipped out. He left before the fight could start, but fights rarely stay unfinished in a town this small. Across the street, a group of young labourers stand beneath a lantern fixed to the wall of the cooper's shop. They whisper among themselves, glancing at the butcher's son and the tavern door. The air between the two groups feels stretched thin, like a rope pulled too tight. One wrong look, one careless word, and it could snap. The watchmen know this too. They patrol slowly near the centre of the street, their lanterns held high, their eyes moving from shadow to shadow. The captain murmurs that he expects trouble soon. His men nod without enthusiasm. No one likes breaking up fights between angry workers, especially when ale has soaked too deeply into their judgment. But even with the watch nearby, trouble grows. The tavern door opens again, and two more men step outside, both already in bad moods. One of them shoves the door too hard as he exits, as if trying to push his anger out with him. The other mutters something under his breath. Neither of them carries a lantern. Their faces are lit only by the warm, wavering glow from the tavern behind them. The butcher's son hears their voices and lifts his head. One of the labourers under the lantern notices him looking and says something sharp to his friends. The words are too quiet to hear, but their effect is clear. The group laughs. Not in a friendly way, but in the way that says a fight would feel easier than going home. 4 different small sparks, anger, ale, pride and darkness, meet in the centre of the street. The night waits to see which one will strike first. Inside the alehouse, The innkeeper's wife senses the change. She steps to the doorway and looks out into the street. She has seen brawls begin this way 100 times, quiet at first, then exploding with sudden force. She sees the watch nearby and feels a moment of relief, but that relief does not last long. The watch can break up a fight, but they cannot prevent it if the men are determined. She calls out for her husband, but he is helping a man who has fallen asleep face first on a table. By the time he reaches the door, the first shout has already echoed across the lane. It is a simple word, barked sharply. Say that again. Everyone turns. The butcher's son has stepped forward. One of the labourers stands facing him now, chin lifted in a challenge that has more bravery than sense behind it. The watch captain steps between them, raising his lantern. The light casts long, stretched shadows across the street. He warns them in a calm voice to go home. Most nights, that warning would work. But tonight, the alehouse heat has followed these men into the open air. A second shout, louder this time, rolls through the street. It comes from one of the two men who left the tavern earlier. He takes a step toward the labourers, his fists already tightening. Another man answers him with equal anger. Voices mix. The captain raises his staff. But someone pushes. No one can say who. All anyone sees is the sudden shove, the stagger backward, the sound of boots scraping stone. That is all it takes. The rope snaps. The butcher's son lunges forward. The labourer swings first. The men behind them shout. In one breath, the quiet tension explodes into motion. Bodies crash together. A cup, still half full, flies from someone's hand and smashes against the cobblestones. The watchmen rush in, pushing, grabbing, trying to separate the fighters. Their lanterns sway wildly. The light leaps across the walls, carving flickering shapes into the night. More men spill out of the tavern, drawn by the noise. Some cheer. Some try to calm things down. Others join the fight without even knowing who started it or why. A man shouts that he has lost his shoe. Another curses as he is hit in the shoulder. Someone grabs a coat that isn't his. The chaos grows, fed by every breath, every shove, every bit of anger left over from the long day. The noise echoes through the narrow lanes, shouting, grunts, the thud of fists on cloth and bone. A woman watching from an upper window clutches her shawl, shaking her head. This is not new. It is what happens when men drink too much and the night gives them more courage than wisdom. But even in the chaos, there are rules. No knives, no blades. That is the unspoken law in a town where every man knows every other man's family. A fight is a release, not a killing. And though the punches are real and the bruises will last for days, most brawlers have no desire to cause real harm. Still, brawls are dangerous. One wrong fall, one unlucky strike, and the night can turn from loud to deadly. The watch captain knows this. He moves with practiced skill, grabbing the two biggest fighters by their collars and pulling them apart. His voice rises above the noise, deep and commanding. Slowly, like a fire being smothered, the chaos begins to quiet. Men separate. Some step back, panting hard. Others wipe blood from their noses or rub their sore knuckles. A few laugh, already seeing the fight as a story to tell tomorrow. One of the watchmen finds a lantern lying on the ground, its oil spilled. He sets it upright and relights it with a small spark of flint. The returning glow softens the sharp edges of the scene. For a moment, everyone stands still, breathing hard, shoulders tense, hearts racing. Then the watch captain points toward home. He doesn't shout. He doesn't threaten. He simply points, and one by one, men begin to leave, some muttering, some laughing, some limping, but all of them moving away from the center of the street, back toward the warmth of their houses or the cold darkness of whatever corners they crawled out of. The tavern quiets again. The street settles. The innkeeper shakes his head, wiping sweat from his brow. The town returns, slowly and reluctantly, to a fragile sort of peace. Yet the silence that follows feels different than before. It is the silence that comes after something breaks, then heals just enough to stand again. And though the brawl is over, the night is still young. Chaos has only stretched its legs. There are many hours left for trouble to rise again. The street is finally quiet, but the quiet feels thin, like a piece of cloth stretched too tightly across a frame. Underneath it, the tension of the night still swirls. The watchmen know this. They walk slowly, their lanterns swinging in steady arcs as they move through the narrow lanes. The glow of their lights spreads across the cobblestones, revealing puddles, footprints, and the occasional dropped cup left behind by the brawlers. The watch captain exhales through his nose, tired already though the night is only half over. He has broken up 3 arguments since dusk. He has separated 2 drunken groups from coming to blows in front of the baker's shop. And now, after the fight at the tavern, he knows trouble will drift to another corner before long. Trouble always moves. It never disappears. The younger watchman walks beside him, rubbing his jaw. He took an elbow during the fight and is still annoyed about it. He says, half under his breath, that the townspeople never learn. The captain gives no answer. He has heard that complaint every night for 20 years. People do not learn when ale and darkness push them forward. Ahead of them, the lanes twist sharply, swallowing their lantern light. These narrow passages are the hardest to patrol. They are too close, too tight, with walls that lean forward as if trying to listen. Houses crowd so closely together that the night air barely moves here. Even the sky seems far away, blocked by wooden beams and crooked rooftops. A sudden noise breaks the stillness. It is faint, like something dragged across stone. The captain raises his lantern. Nothing moves within the circle of light. The younger watchman steps forward, leaning slightly to peer round a corner. There is nothing there but a stack of empty barrels and the faint smell of damp wood. The captain says it was probably a rat. In this part of town, rats are more common than people. Still, both men walk a little faster. They know that small noises often lead to larger ones. A curse, a shout, a crash. These sounds travel quickly at night, each with its own meaning. But the dragging sound is harder to place. It could be nothing, or it could be something they will regret ignoring. They continue their patrol. Behind them, the faint sound repeats. Neither man hears it this time. Near the central square, 2 other watchmen stand by the fountain. The water inside sits still and black, reflecting the lantern hung on a hook above. These 2 men did not join the earlier fight. They stayed in the square to keep an eye on the wealthier homes. Trouble happens more often in the poorer districts, but theft is more common near the square. A thief needs darkness, but he also needs something worth stealing. As the captain approaches, one of the watchmen steps forward, clearing his throat. He reports that they saw a shadow move across the rooftops earlier. Not a person on the street, but above it. The young watchman frowns, saying it was probably a cat. But the other watchman insists the shape was too large, too quick. The captain nods slowly. He has heard these reports before. A thief who prefers rooftops is not unusual. In fact, many thieves use them to avoid lantern laws and patrols. Roofs offer privacy and darkness, and the wooden beams between houses make a hidden path above the town. But catching such a thief is almost impossible. Still, the captain sends one of the men toward the nearest ladder routes. If someone is moving along the rooftops, they should at least try to take a look. For a few minutes, the night seems calm. A dog barks once in the distance and is quickly shushed by someone inside a house. A shutter creaks in the wind. Someone coughs behind a closed door. These are normal sounds, harmless sounds. Then a woman screams. The watchmen freeze. The sound echoes from the other side of the square, sharp, high, filled with real fear. Not drunken anger, not a playful shout, a true scream. The captain runs first, the lantern clutched tightly in one hand. The younger watchman follows, nearly tripping over a loose stone. The square becomes a blur as they move through it, their boots striking the stone with heavy rhythm. The scream comes again. This time, it is joined by a man's voice yelling for help. The watch turn a corner into a small lane and find a woman standing with her back against a wall, holding a thin piece of firewood like a weapon. Her hair is tangled, and her cloak is slipping from her shoulders. Across from her stands a man, tall, hooded, and tense. His hands are balled into fists. He turns sharply when he sees the lantern light, his eyes reflecting a brief glint of fear. The younger watchman steps forward with his staff raised, but the captain blocks him with an arm. He knows the difference between a dangerous criminal and a man who made a mistake. The man insists he wasn't attacking her. He says he only grabbed her arm because he thought she was someone else, someone who owed him money. The woman says he demanded payment for something she did not buy. Their voices overlap, each one louder than the last. The captain raises his lantern higher. The truth is unclear, lost somewhere between fear and agitation. But he sees the woman's shaking hands. He sees the man's clenched jaw. He sees the darkness around them waiting eagerly for things to grow worse. He orders the man to step back. The hooded figure hesitates, then slowly obeys. The young watchman places a hand on the man's shoulder, guiding him away from the woman. She continues shaking, breathing in short, uneven bursts. The captain lowers his lantern and asks if she is hurt. She says no, though she sounds uncertain. She explains she left home to fetch water from a distant well after her daughter became sick. She was too frightened to stay out long, and now she regrets leaving the safety of her house. The captain tells her to return home at once. She nods and rushes away, clutching her firewood like a lifeline. The hooded man is not arrested. He is escorted back towards the tavern and warned that any further trouble will end in punishment. He mutters angrily but complies. The watchman who escorts him keeps a firm hand on his arm, guiding him like a tired parent guiding a stubborn child. When the lane is empty again, the captain sighs. The younger watchman asks if they should write a report. The captain shakes his head. He says quietly that if they wrote a report for every argument in this town, the sun would rise before they ever finished. They walk on. Hours pass. The watch continue their rounds. They break up a shouting match between two neighbors arguing about a borrowed pot. They guide a drunk back to his home before he wanders into the wrong house. They chase away a group of boys trying to climb the town wall. But despite their efforts, the night grows heavier. The lantern flames shrink. The wind picks up. Shadows deepen. And then, without warning, the watch hears something they dread, a thud, followed by the sound of running feet. It echoes down the narrow stone corridor of the farthest lane, where no lanterns burn. The sound is fast and desperate. Someone fleeing. Someone chasing. Or something worse. The captain speeds up. His lantern light bounces wildly against the walls. The young watchman runs beside him, breath quick and uneven. When they reach the lane, they find nothing. No thief, no victim, no fight. Only a small leather pouch lying on the ground, its string broken. Coins spill from its mouth, glittering faintly in the lantern's glow. The young watchman curses softly. A robbery, and they are too late. Again. The captain crouches and lifts the pouch, examining the torn string. The cut is clean, made by a blade, a skilled hand. Perhaps even the thief from the rooftops. The watchman at his side looks anxiously up and down the lane, but there is no sign of movement. The thief is gone, swallowed by the night as if he were never there. The captain stands. His lantern light flickers across the empty lane. He mutters the truth he has learned after many years on these streets. The night always wins. And with tired feet and heavier hearts, the watchmen return to their patrol, knowing full well that the shadows still hold more trouble before dawn arrives. The night drifts deeper, settling into a colder, heavier quiet that wraps around the town like a thick blanket. The tavern noise has softened for the moment. The brawlers have limped home. The watchmen continue their slow rounds, boots striking the stones in steady rhythm. Yet every person who steps outside knows something important. The curfew has begun. Curfew in a medieval town is not simply a suggestion. It is a rule shaped by fear, necessity, and generations of hard lessons about what the night can do if left unrestrained. The town gates are locked. Most doors are barred. Windows are shuttered. Anyone still wandering the streets understands that every step must now be careful, because a small mistake could attract attention from the watch, from thieves, or from something far worse. Inside one cramped home, a woman whispers to her husband to hurry. He has been outside too long, tending to the last embers in the smithy before locking up for the night. He wipes soot from his hands, pulls the heavy bar across the door, and nods at her. They both know that once the bell before midnight rings, they must stay indoors unless there is a true emergency. The curfew is announced by the same bell that ended the daylight hours. It tolls again now, slow and heavy, its deep voice echoing through the streets. The sound flows into every corner of the town, down the lanes near the river, through the market square, past the stables, up to the wealthier homes near the church. The bell does not ask, it orders. Those who are still outside hear it and freeze for a moment. Some hurry home. Others step deeper into shadow, hoping to avoid the watch. A few curse under their breath, annoyed that they must pause their plans. Curfew shapes the night, but it does not stop all movement, because where there are rules, there are always those who break them. And in a medieval town, curfew breaking is not always about mischief. Sometimes it is survival, sometimes greed, sometimes secrecy. Tonight, several groups move quietly beneath the heavy darkness. People who have learned how to slip past lantern light and watchful eyes. These are the carriers of contraband. Contraband can mean anything the town forbids. Stolen goods, illegal wine, foreign spices not taxed by the Lord, or letters that should not be read. It can even mean simple items that became forbidden only because someone powerful decided to control their sale. In a town where most families survive on thin margins, the temptation of extra coin pulls many into shadow. Near the river, two figures kneel beside a barrel hidden beneath a rotting tarp. Their cloaks blend into the night. One of them pulls out a small sack filled with something powdery. The smell is sharp. Ground herbs that were banned after someone claimed they caused illness. The men do not believe the ban. They believe the herbs sell well, and that is enough. They whisper, checking that the alley is still empty. A single lantern hangs far down the lane, its glow too faint to reach them. They lift the barrel carefully, preparing to roll it toward a waiting cart. The curfew bell rolls its last long note through the air. The men freeze. They wait, they breathe, and then they move again. Only a few streets away, a completely different kind of contraband is exchanged. A young servant girl knocks lightly on the door of a wealthy home. She is nervous but determined. The man who opens the door slips her a sealed letter. No lantern, no words exchanged. She hides it beneath her cloak and moves quickly into the night. Delivering private letters after curfew is dangerous, but some people will pay almost anything to keep their secrets hidden from the public eye. The watch captain knows exactly how much contraband moves through the town each night. He has never been able to stop it completely. At best, he interrupts it. At worst, he hears about it days later. Tonight, as he and his men walk through the lanes, he looks at the shadows with suspicion born from long experience. Every closed door, every quiet shape pressed against a wall, every roofline, all of them are hiding something. The younger watchman sighs as they pass a narrow alley. He knows that contraband is slipping around them in places too dark for their lanterns. He says that curfew should make people behave. The captain answers softly that curfew only makes the careful more careful and the desperate more desperate. The night encourages both. Far down one of the side roads, a group of 3 young men hurry along, carrying bundles wrapped in cloth. They walk with exaggerated confidence, pretending they are not afraid. But they glance constantly behind them, checking for lantern light. Their bundles clink softly with each step. Inside them are small metal tools, newly forged but stolen. They plan to sell them to a trader outside the walls tomorrow at dawn. One of the boys stops suddenly. He hears boots, the faint echo of watchmen approaching. The boys press themselves into a gap between 2 houses. Their breathing is shallow. The lantern light reaches close enough to touch their feet, but no more. The watchmen pass by without noticing them. Still, the youngest boy trembles. He has never done anything like this before. His older brothers whisper encouragement. They promised him this would be easy coin, but nothing feels easy now. The weight of the stolen goods in his hands feels heavier with every passing second. In another corner of town, a lone man pushes a small cart. The wheels squeak softly, much too loudly for his liking. The cart carries one item, a barrel of wine that was never declared to the town council, imported in secret, hidden in a barn, now being delivered to a wealthy household that pretends during the day to care about the town's rules. A cat darts across the man's path, startling him. He almost drops the handles of the cart. His heart races. He hears the night watch far away, but sound travels strangely in the dark. Sometimes it seems close when it is far, and sometimes the opposite. He continues on, repeating a single thought to calm himself. Just a few more steps. Just a few more steps. In the homes where the lights are still burning, families stay awake listening for anything unusual. The curfew does not make the night peaceful. It makes it quieter, which means every unusual noise becomes more frightening. A door creaking, a whisper outside, footsteps moving too slowly. The creak of floorboards in the next house over. Near the square, a child wakes and cries in the small hours of the night. The mother rises to comfort the child, passing a window as she does. She pauses, hearing faint footsteps outside. She peeks through a small gap in the shutter and sees 2 men carrying a heavy sack between them. She cannot tell what is inside. Grain, perhaps, or stolen fabric, or something far more dangerous. She closes the shutter quickly and whispers a prayer. It is not her place to ask questions. In the distance, the watch captain stops suddenly. He believes he heard something, a quick rustle, something metallic. He lifts his lantern, scanning the area, but the street is empty. Shadows stretch long against the walls. A shutter bangs once in the wind. The younger watchman asks if they should investigate. The captain hesitates. He has a feeling, a tightening in his gut, something he has learned to trust. Contraband moves like a silent river under the surface of the town. When he feels it flowing, it is rarely wrong. He orders the men to check the alley behind the cooper's shop. They go. But by the time they reach it, the street is empty. No tracks in the dirt. No sign of struggle. Not even the smell of spilled wine. The alley looks untouched. The captain mutters that the night watch is always 2 steps behind. Always reacting, never catching. Always failing, even when they try. Curfew sharpens this feeling. It squeezes the night into something tighter, more controlled. But control in darkness is an illusion. People still move. Secrets still travel. Shadows still hide. As the hour grows late, some contraband reaches its destination. Other goods are still being carried quietly from one hiding place to another, and some were never meant to be found. Above all this movement, the rooftops remain silent, but the silence is deceptive. Somewhere up there, someone is watching the lanterns move below. Someone who knows the watch cannot look up at the sky and the ground at the same time. Someone waiting for just the right moment to slip above the patrol routes once more. Curfew has turned the streets into a stage of stillness. But beneath that stillness, the night is alive with hidden paths and hidden deeds. And not all of them will stay hidden for long. The deepest part of the night settles over the town like a heavy cloak. The moon hangs low, half hidden behind slow-moving clouds, and the lanterns that still burn flicker with weak, trembling flames. The curfew has quieted most streets, but not all hearts. In a medieval town, darkness does not only belong to thieves, watchmen, and drunk brawlers. It also belongs to lovers, those who must hide their affection from families, guilds, neighbors, and the strict rules that govern nearly every part of life. For some, night offers the only freedom they will ever taste. On a narrow lane near the town wall, a young woman slips from the side door of her home. She pulls her cloak tightly around her shoulders, hiding her hair beneath the hood. Her hands shake, not from cold, but from nerves. She is not supposed to be outside after curfew. She is not supposed to speak to the young man she is going to meet, and she is certainly not supposed to meet him alone. But she cannot help herself. Each night she tells herself she will stay inside. Each night she fails. She moves quietly, her boots barely touching the ground. Her small lantern is hidden beneath her cloak, the flame shielded by her hands. A single flicker escaping at the wrong moment could reveal her to the watch. And if the watch does not see her, then a neighbor might. Rumors travel through the town faster than any horse on the King's Road. As she rounds the corner, she sees him, waiting in the shadow of an old stone well. The well has not drawn water in many years, but it draws secrets instead. It is the place where forbidden meetings have taken place for generations. He steps forward when he sees her, relief softening the tension on his face. He wears a wool cloak patched at the sleeves, too worn to belong to a wealthy man. But his eyes show warmth and sincerity, and when he reaches for her hand, she gives it without hesitation. They stand close, keeping their voices low. The night wraps them in privacy, giving them a space that daylight refuses. By day, he is a poor apprentice at a cooper's workshop. She is the daughter of a merchant who expects her to marry someone with more status, more coin, more certainty. But love does not follow rules, and so they meet here, night after night, in the shadows. He asks if she is cold. She shakes her head. He asks if her family suspects anything. She hesitates, then admits that her mother watches her more closely now. Her mother is afraid she will wander outside alone. The mother believes that darkness carries danger, but she does not know the danger her daughter willingly runs toward. For a few minutes, the young lovers forget the world around them. They whisper about the future, imagining a time when they will not need to hide in alleyways or lie about where they are. They speak of small dreams, saving money, finding a small cottage, living quietly. These dreams glow gently between them, warmer than the lantern flame hidden under her cloak. But their moment is fragile. Every sound in the night threatens to break it. A sudden clatter echoes down the lane, someone kicking a loose stone. The lovers pull apart instantly. The young man presses himself against the well, and the young woman kneels, pretending to adjust her shoe. Lantern light grows brighter. The watch approaches. Two watchmen turn the corner, their lantern held high. The flame throws pale light across the walls, bouncing unpredictably as the men walk. One of them yawns. The other looks irritated. He hates this part of the night, when the world feels too quiet and his own thoughts chase him down the empty streets. They do not immediately notice the couple. The lovers do not breathe. The woman keeps her head lowered. The man stays perfectly still, blending into the deep shadow behind the well. The watchmen pause. One mutters about hearing something. The other shrugs, saying it was probably nothing. After a moment of uneasy silence, they move on, their lantern swaying until its glow vanishes into the next lane. Only when the sound of boots fades completely do the lovers stand again. The young woman lets out a shaky breath. The young man steels himself, his jaw tight. They both know how close they came to disaster. Inside the town, love is often a kind of rebellion. Marriages are arranged by families, guild agreements, or alliances meant to benefit trade or status. Feelings rarely matter, but feelings still exist, and they find ways to bloom in the cracks between rules and expectations. Elsewhere across the town, other hearts are also defying the curfew. Near the church, a widow opens her door quietly. She is well past the age when people expect her to seek companionship, but she still slips out occasionally to visit the apothecary, whose shop sits near the edge of the market. Their conversations are simple: how the harvest looks, how the weather will affect the winter, whether the priest will scold them for leaving their candles too close to the wooden shelves. But there is tenderness in these small talks, a comfort neither of them found in their youth. They sit together on the apothecary's doorstep, sharing a single lantern and laughing softly. If anyone saw them, gossip would spread immediately. So they meet only after the town sleeps, when shadows make even the oldest faces look young. Across the river road, another kind of secret meeting takes place. A stable boy slips out from behind the barn, wiping hay from his clothes. He carries no lantern at all. A girl from the nearby laundry house waits for him, leaning against the wooden fence. They are both young, barely adults, their cheeks still round with youth. But the way they look at each other is unmistakable. Their hands brush. They talk about small things: who fed the horses that day, who burned their hand on the dye pot, who saw a new foal born. Their lives are simple, but the feelings are real. They sit together on the fence rail, legs swinging in the darkness. Neither of them wonders about the future. They live in the moment, enjoying the quiet comfort of being beside someone who understands them. The night protects all of these meetings, but it also threatens them. A sudden gust of wind cuts through the streets, rattling shutters and scattering dry leaves. The moon slips behind a cloud, making the town even darker. The lovers near the old well grip each other's hands tighter. They know they should part soon. The longer they remain outside, the more likely something will go wrong. The young man insists on walking her at least part of the way home. She refuses at first, fearful that the watch will see them together and punish him. But he insists, worried she will be too frightened to walk alone. Finally, she agrees. They move carefully along the wall, staying close to shadows, listening for footsteps. Halfway to her home, they pause. The wind grows colder. Somewhere in the distance, a dog howls, long and low. The sound travels through the sleeping town, touching every stone, every shutter, every open ear. The young woman shivers. The young man steps closer, trying to shield her from the cold. In that moment, the danger of the night seems to fade around them. They share a quiet embrace, knowing that tomorrow they will go back to pretending they are nothing more than familiar faces in a crowded street. They part just before she reaches her door. She slips inside silently, placing her lantern on the table, heart still racing. He stands outside for a moment longer, watching her window. When he sees the faint glow of her candle inside, he turns and disappears into the darkness. Elsewhere in town, the widow returns home, smiling softly at the memory of her quiet conversation. The The stable boy and laundry girl part with a small kiss before hurrying into separate buildings. Hidden love is woven into the night just as much as fear and chaos are. The watch cannot stop it. The curfew cannot contain it. The lantern laws cannot illuminate it. Night protects these stolen moments, moments of hope, longing, rebellion, and gentle connection in a world ruled by strict order and daylight demands. But as the lovers settle back into their homes and the watch resumes its patrol, the night grows colder still. And in that growing cold, another kind of danger begins to stir, one that does not care about love, rules, or secrets. The night still has many hours left, and trouble is waiting patiently in the dark. The darkest stretch of the night has arrived, the long silent hour when even the tavern begins to quiet and most of the brawlers, lovers, and rule breakers have slipped home. Lanterns burn low. Fires shrink into red embers. The town feels still in a way that is almost unnatural, as if holding its breath. But just beyond the high stone walls, the world is not quiet at all. Out there lies a very different kind of night, open, wild, and hungry. A sharp wind brushes the outside of the gate, lifting dust from the frozen ground. The trees near the edge of the road sway, bending under the cold pressure of the breeze. And from somewhere deep within those woods comes a sound that every person inside the town fears, though they may pretend during the day that they do not. A long, low howl. It rolls across the fields, sliding between the trees and gliding up to the walls like a warning carried on the wind. The sound is distant, but not distant enough. Inside the town, only a few people hear it clearly. Most are asleep by now. A man turns over in his straw mattress, muttering. A child wakes briefly, eyes wide, before her mother soothes her back into sleep. A servant tightening a shutter pauses with trembling hands. But the ones who react the most are the watchmen. They are closest to the gate, closest to the sound, closest to the part of the world where the safe space of the town ends and the wild begins. The watch captain stops walking mid-step. The men beside him freeze as well. Their lanterns sway, and the small flames seem suddenly fragile, too small to defend against anything outside. The younger watchman licks his dry lips. "Wolves again," he whispers. The captain does not answer. He stands still, listening. Another howl answers the first, this one closer. Then a third, higher pitched, from perhaps several wolves at once. Trouble inside a town can be controlled with authority, lanterns, and firm voices. Trouble outside the walls is controlled only by stone, by locks, and by faith that those measures will hold. The men move toward the gate. It towers above them, wood thick and iron banded, closed firmly since the evening bell. But the darkness behind it feels alive. The younger guard holds his lantern close, almost as if hoping it can strengthen the gate itself. They can hear the wolves more clearly now, padding footsteps, quick breaths, and the low rumble of anticipation. Wolves do not often come so close. They prefer isolated farms and open fields. But in the coldest seasons, hunger drives them where they would not normally go. The smell of livestock, waste, warmth, and even cooking fat can draw them toward human settlements. Tonight, hunger has brought them to the gate. The captain quietly orders one of the watchmen to fetch more men from the quarters near the square. The guard hesitates. He does not want to walk away from the light, but he obeys and runs into the maze of dark streets, boots slapping the stones. The remaining men draw closer to the gate. They know the wolves cannot break through. At least, they believe they know. But belief is thinner than courage, and courage is thinner than wood. Another howl rises. This one directly outside the gate. It vibrates through the wood itself, making the metal bars buzz with a faint echo. The younger watchman steps back. His lantern shakes in his hand, its flame stretching in fear. Behind them, the houses nearest the wall begin to stir. A few shutters open slightly. A candle is lit in one window. People whisper to each other through cracks in their doors. The wolves are outside. The wolves are near. Even behind safe walls, the idea is enough to make the night feel more dangerous than before. Some of the older residents remember the time when a lone wolf wandered through the open gate before dawn, years ago when a watchman fell asleep on duty. It caused no deaths, but it was enough to terrify the children and leave the town on edge for weeks. Memories like that come back easily on nights like this. Near the gate, something scratches the wood. Not claws exactly. Something lighter, as if a wolf brushed against the door in curiosity or pushed its snout against a crack. The sound is soft but unmistakable. The younger guard whispers, "They smell the goats." He is right. The small stable near the gate holds 2 goats and a handful of chickens that belong to the poorest families who cannot keep animals inside their homes. The animals sense the wolves too. Their restless movement makes faint noises, a thump, a cluck, a frightened bleat. The wolves outside respond with another chorus of howls. The captain steps forward and pounds on the gate with the end of his staff. "Away!" he shouts into the night. "Away with you!" His voice echoes, bold and commanding. But wolves do not understand voices like people do. They understand weakness, hunger, fear, and opportunity. Inside the stable, the goats panic. One kicks its stall door repeatedly, the sound rattling into the street. A wolf lets out a sharp bark just outside the wall. The watch captain curses. "They'll try to dig beneath," he mutters. It is true. Wolves sometimes dig under walls if the earth is soft enough. And while the gate is reinforced, the ground beneath it is nothing more than packed dirt and small stones. He orders the men to shine their lanterns toward the base of the wall. The flickering light bends and stretches, revealing nothing but small tufts of frozen grass. But the sound of frantic scraping, coming from the other side, makes every man tense. More watchmen arrive, breathless and armed with small spears and long poles with iron hooks. They form a line facing the gate. There is nothing they can do except make noise, wait, and pray the wolves lose interest. The captain lifts his lantern high. "Make yourselves large," he commands. "Noise and fire. Wolves hate both." The men bang their poles against the stone. They shout. One of them lights a piece of hay from a lantern and tosses it into the air, hoping the scent of smoke will drift through the cracks. For a moment, it seems to work. The scraping stops. Silence settles again outside the wall. Then, without warning, a new sound rises. Not a howl this time, but a snarl. Deep, guttural, angry. The younger watchman closes his eyes. Even without seeing the wolves, he can picture them. Thin from winter, ribs showing, eyes glowing faint in the dark, bodies shifting restlessly. A small pack of 4, maybe 5, circling the gate, testing it, searching for weakness. The captain beats the wood again, louder. "Away!" Loud thud answers him from the other side, as if a wolf hurled itself against the gate in frustration. The men step back. The gate holds, but the sound resonates through the captain's bones. Inside the nearby houses, the fear spreads. A few people begin to pray. Parents hold their children closer. Dogs bark and then fall silent, sensing danger they cannot see. Minutes pass, long minutes. The watchmen continue banging their poles and shouting. The captain shouts until his voice grows hoarse. But the wolves do not leave. They pace, they scrape, they snarl. Finally, after nearly half an hour, something changes. The sounds grow fainter. The wolves bark once, short, sharp, then fade into the distance. The watchmen hold their breath, listening. For a while, there is nothing. Then a final howl rises far away, carried by the wind until it melts into the dark forest. The captain instructs one of the men to remain at the gate for the rest of the night. Another is sent to check the stable animals. The rest slowly relax, though not completely. Some dangers come from inside the walls, but others come from the wild, unpredictable, ancient, and untouched by curfews or lantern laws. When the moon breaks free of the clouds again, its pale light reveals the scratches outside the gate, fresh and sharp. The wolves were closer than anyone wanted to believe. As the watchmen walk away, the captain glances back once more. He knows dawn is still many hours away, and the night, shaken but not broken, begins to settle again into uneasy stillness. But the quiet now carries a new edge, because every person near the gate knows the truth. Whatever chaos blooms within the walls, the darkness outside will always be waiting, hungry, patient, and fearless. The wolves move back into the forest, leaving the town walls cold and trembling, but the night does not relax. Instead, it shifts, changing shape once more, as if the darkness itself is a living thing responding to the sounds, scents, and fears that move through it. Where the animals leave off, people take over. And nothing fills the silence after danger like the quiet steps of someone who knows how to live in shadows. Across the town, in the hour when most honest people sleep deeply, a different kind of figure becomes active. He waits for this time every night. Some call it the thief's hour, others call it the black hour, but he calls it simply the only time he can breathe. The thief lives in a narrow loft above a workshop that smells of tanning oils and stinking hides by day. His bed is nothing more than a worn blanket, and his meals depend on whether he managed to steal something of value the night before. But he is not reckless. Reckless thieves end up in chains or hanging from ropes. He is careful, quiet, patient. He studies the night like other men study the Bible. At this hour, when the tavern is quiet, when the watch is tired, when even the wolves have decided to hunt elsewhere, he moves. He pushes open the small shutter beside his bed. The faint moonlight spills onto the wooden floor, illuminating small piles of rope, tools, and a leather pouch containing 3 copper coins stolen days ago. He takes only what he needs: a short blade, a bit of cloth to wrap it, a small hook, and a coiled line thin enough to hide under his cloak. He moves with practiced silence. He knows which boards creak and which do not. He knows how to slide his foot in just the right angle so that the wood accepts his weight without sound. He knows that the night rewards those who respect its rules. Within a minute, he has slipped out the window, eased himself onto the slanted roof, and begun his slow crawl across the beams. The town below lies in near total silence. Lanterns burn only in the hands of the watch, and in the windows of those who have recently experienced fear or illness. Everywhere else is dark. Darkness is his ally. His first destination is a small courtyard behind the baker's shop. Earlier that day, the baker, exhausted from preparing a feast order, forgot to lock the small storeroom where he keeps sacks of flour and sweet rolls. Even the smell of baking bread during daylight had reached the thief as he passed. Food is as precious as coin, and any opportunity is a good one. He lowers himself from the roof using the line of rope and lands silently on the cobblestones below. The courtyard is still, except for a weak breeze that stirs the cold ash in yesterday's fire pit. The thief moves along the shadows of the wall until he reaches the storeroom door. It is shut, but it hangs slightly off its hinge. He presses his ear to the wood. No sound from inside, no rats, no workers, no movement. He slips in. The storeroom smells warm, even though the oven fire died many hours ago. It smells of bread, grain, and soot. On a shelf by the door sits a tray of honey cakes, cooling from the evening bake. The thief's stomach twists with hunger, but he forces himself to ignore them. Honey cakes are for eating, not for selling. He needs something that will last, something that will fetch a price from the market traders when the sun rises. He takes one small sack of flour, no more. If he steals too much, the baker will notice immediately and report it. But one sack? The baker will believe a rat chewed through it, or that he miscounted, or that his apprentice misplaced the bag. The thief knows how much is just enough, and he respects the balance. He ties the sack closed, tucks it against his chest, and slips back out into the courtyard. But as he prepares to return to the rooftops, he hears something. Footsteps. Not the heavy boots of the watch, not the uneven stomp of a drunk. These steps are soft, sneaky, like his own. The thief stiffens. He presses himself against the wall, holding his breath. A shadow passes across the opposite side of the courtyard. Someone small, slight, and quick. The figure moves with the same caution the thief uses himself, suggesting experience. A child? A rival? A starving boy looking for crumbs? Or someone more dangerous? The thief watches silently. The shadow pauses at the far corner and pulls something from its cloak, a small sack. The figure opens it and begins filling it with bread left on a cooling rack. Not a thief. A hungry neighbor child, barely 12. The thief lets out a slow breath. He knows the boy. The boy once lived near him, though his parents died last winter. The child now survives on charity, scraps, and luck. Not much different from himself, except the boy still believes the world owes him a little kindness. The thief does not move. He waits until the boy has taken 2 small loaves and scurried out of the courtyard like a frightened rabbit. Only then does he climb the wall again, leaving the child to his small survival. There is enough hunger in this town for everyone. Once back on the rooftops, the thief begins to cross toward the market square. He moves lightly, testing each tile before committing his weight. He knows that even a soft crack can alert a watchman below. From his high vantage, he sees the watch captain patrolling near the church. The captain's lantern throws a circle of dim amber light across the cobblestones, making the shadows look deeper and more threatening by comparison. The thief does not fear the captain, but he respects him. The man is alert, experienced, and persistent. A careless thief can be caught by lesser watchmen. A skilled thief can be caught only by men like the captain. He waits until the captain turns the corner before continuing. The next target lies 2 streets further, the home of a spice trader who has recently raised prices far beyond what the townsfolk can afford. The thief sees no shame in stealing from a man who profits from greed. He creeps across the roof until he reaches the trader's house. A small wooden balcony juts out from the upper floor. Hanging from a hook is the trader's keyring, carelessly left after he returned home late from the tavern. The thief's lips curve into a thin smile. Keys solve many problems. He lowers himself onto the balcony, careful to keep his feet off the loose boards near the railing. He takes the key ring, then tries the first one on the door. The lock clicks quietly. Inside, the house is warmer than the outside air. A dying hearth fire fills the room with faint red glow. The trader snores loudly from the next room, completely unaware that someone has just slipped into his home. The thief moves like smoke, soft, thin, barely touching the ground. He searches the room carefully. Coins? None left out tonight. Jewelry? Locked away. Spices? Yes. On a shelf above the table sit 3 small spice jars: saffron, pepper, and cinnamon. Their value is greater than most townspeople make in a week. He chooses only 1 jar. Too much missing would cause immediate suspicion. 1 missing jar can be blamed on the trader's drunken forgetfulness. He slips the jar into his cloak. But as he turns to leave, the floorboard creaks. The thief freezes. The snoring stops. A shifting noise comes from the next room. A bed rustles. The trader mumbles, then sits up. "Who's there?" The thief holds his breath. The trader stands, feet touching the cold floor. He moves toward the door. The thief has seconds. Only seconds. He glides back toward the balcony, easing the door shut behind him, just as the trader's lantern flickers to life. The thief climbs quickly, fingers gripping the stone. He pulls himself over the roof's edge, just as the trader opens the balcony door and peers into the night. The trader curses, thinking the wind knocked the door open. The thief lies flat, invisible against the roof tiles, until the lantern light retreats. He waits 10 long breaths, then rises. The thief still has one final task tonight, a dangerous one. Below the market square, hidden behind the butcher's shed, is a wooden crate. The crate belongs to the town's money collector, used to store the small taxes and late payments gathered each market day. A man desperate enough, and quiet enough, might find something inside. The thief hesitates. The crate is heavily watched during the day, but at night belongs to him. He makes his way across rooftops until he reaches a building near the square. He lowers himself carefully, landing behind a barrel. The square is silent, except for the faint rustle of wind through the empty stalls. He reaches the crate. He kneels. He listens. Silence. He lifts the lid. Inside rests a small leather pouch. Heavy. Too heavy for only coins. He unties it and peers inside. Jewelry. Gold earrings, a ring, a small brooch set with colored glass meant to look like gemstones. These were confiscated earlier that day from a merchant who failed to pay a fine. The thief's breath catches. This could feed him for a month. He reaches toward the pouch. But before he can take it, a voice cuts through the darkness. "I knew you'd come here." The thief spins. The watch captain stands at the edge of the square, his lantern held high, the flame reflecting in his tired, knowing eyes. The thief says nothing. Neither does the captain. The night holds them both, waiting to see who will move first. The moment the thief turns, lantern light washes over the stones around him, soft but unforgiving. The square feels suddenly enormous, too open, too exposed. The watch captain stands at its edge like a dark pillar, his lantern held at chest height, illuminating little more than his face and the trembling circle of ground beneath him. The rest of the square stretches out in cold, shadowy emptiness. For a moment, neither man moves. They simply stare at each other across a distance that feels as narrow as a breath and as wide as a continent. The thief's heart pounds, but his face remains composed. He has trained himself to look calm, even when his pulse races. Fear shows weakness. Weakness leads to mistakes. The captain's voice breaks the silence first, quiet, almost tired. "I knew someone would come for the crate," he says. "I just didn't know it would be you." The thief says nothing. He slips his hand slowly away from the pouch, fingers brushing the wooden edge of the crate. He does not dare to reach for his knife. The captain is watching too closely. The captain steps forward. His boots strike the stones with deliberate weight, not threatening, but purposeful. The lantern swings gently, and the thief sees the exhaustion in the older man's eyes. Not anger, not triumph, just weariness. "You could have taken enough from the baker," the captain says, "or from the spice merchant. But this is the wrong place to tempt fate." Still, the thief keeps quiet. Words are dangerous. Words trap people. Silence can be an escape. The captain walks closer, not fast, but steady, like a man approaching a frightened horse, careful not to provoke it. "You're smart," he continues, "smarter than most. You know the night. You know the rooftops. And you know this crate is checked first thing at dawn." The thief swallows. He shifts his weight slightly, positioning his foot near the gap between two stools. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to prepare. The captain notices. His gaze drops to the thief's feet, then he sighs. "Don't run," he warns softly. "You'll only make it worse." The thief's pulse spikes. His breath grows tight in his chest. Running might make things worse, but staying makes things impossible. No punishment is small for a repeat thief. Chains. The stocks. Worse. He has seen too many men change forever, once locked in a cold cell. The captain steps closer. "Let it go," he says. His voice is calm, almost gentle. "Walk with me. No shouting, no fighting. I'll speak for you at dawn." He means it. The thief can hear it in his tone. The man believes punishment can be softened, perhaps because he sees the thief not as a villain, but as a symptom of a hard world. But the thief cannot trust mercy. Mercy is unpredictable. Mercy depends on luck, mood, and the opinions of others who will judge him in the morning. He glances past the captain, to the far end of the square. The road. The long, narrow road that leads straight to the inner gate. The gate is still closed. The outer gate too. But the area surrounding the entrance, its shadows, its storage huts, its narrow lanes. These offer hiding places, blind corners, and routes that the watch patrols less often. If he can reach the inner gate and slip behind the grain shed, he can reach the tannery loft again by sunrise. But first, he must escape the captain. He inhales, sharp and controlled. Then, lightning fast, he moves. He doesn't sprint. Sprinting makes too much noise. Instead, he slips sideways, sliding between two empty stools, his cloak brushing the wooden posts. "Stop!" the captain shouts, lantern swinging wildly as he runs after him. The thief glides into the dark lanes that lead away from the square. His feet know the stones. His body moves with the memory of every night he has spent navigating this web of shadows. Behind him, the captain follows, but the weight of armor and the bulk of a lantern slow him. The thief turns a corner and presses against the wall, letting the captain's rushed footsteps echo past the intersection. For a moment, the thief considers doubling back to the loft. But no, the captain will anticipate that. He waits, listens. The captain's boots fade into the distance. Now, he runs. Across the lane, past the cooper's shop, along the silent fronts of sleeping homes. The moon hides again behind clouds, covering him in deeper shadow. His cloak snaps lightly in the wind as he moves, soundless except for the soft rhythm of his breath. He reaches the lower market. It is dead silent, stalls closed tight, cloth awnings frozen stiff with frost. The thief ducks beneath a wooden table and pauses, catching his breath, ears sharp. He hears boots again. Not one pair. 2, 3. The captain wasn't alone. Not anymore. The thief realizes the truth. The wolves at the gate earlier must have drawn watchmen inward. The square patrol is doubled. The night watch is awake, alert, on edge. He is trapped. Unless he looks towards the inner gate. It stands tall and dark ahead, nearly invisible except for the faint silver outline of iron nails catching the moonlight. Next to it is the grain shed, and beside the shed is a narrow drainage trench that runs along the wall. Most people avoid the trench. It is damp and foul. But the thief knows it leads directly behind the stable yard, which connects to the side of the tanner's loft. It is a tight space, too tight for most. But he is thin, flexible, desperate. Boots echo behind him, closer now. Voices. Light. The thief crawls into the trench. The smell slams into him immediately. Rot, damp straw, old waste washed from the upper streets during the last rainstorm. His fingers sink into mud. His clothes soak instantly. But he does not hesitate. He pulls himself deeper into the darkness. Behind him, lantern light sweeps the lane. A watchman shouts, "He went this way!" The thief freezes, pressing himself against the wet stone. The lantern light grows brighter, sweeping across the ground above his head. Someone kicks the edge of the trench. The thief clamps his hand over his own mouth. Silence. Then, "I don't see tracks," one watchman mutters. "He can't have vanished," another insists. "He's close," the captain's voice says, calm but strained. "Search the sheds." Their boots move away. Slowly, slowly, until the thief hears nothing but wind again. He crawls forward through the trench. The mud drags at his clothes. Sharp stones scrape his hands. But he keeps going, inch by inch, until he reaches a wooden grate that leads into the stable yard. One good push dislodges it. He emerges behind the stable, dripping, filthy, freezing, but free. The horses stir nervously as he slips past their stalls. One snorts, recognizing a stranger. The thief presses a calming hand against its neck, whispering for quiet. He reaches the far wall, the one with loose stones the tanner never bothered to repair. He climbs swift and sure, gripping where mortar has cracked. He reaches the roof. He crosses the beams. He dives into the loft through the open window. Only then does he let himself collapse onto the wooden floor, chest heaving, eyes burning, hands trembling from cold and adrenaline. The crate is far behind him now. The watchmen are searching other lanes. The captain will soon return to the square to confirm the jewelry is still untouched. He survived. Barely. But as he lies shaking on the floor, listening to the wind whistle through the cracks of the roof, the thief knows the truth. This night is not over. And dawn is still many hours away. In the darkest part of medieval life, survival is never just a matter of skill. It is a matter of luck. And the thief is running out of it. The hour grows colder and heavier as the night slips toward its deepest point. The town sleeps unevenly now, shaken by wolves, startled by distant shouts, and unsettled by the quiet that follows. Even those who lie beneath blankets sense something in the air. Night feels different when danger has already brushed the town's edge. Every creak of a shutter, every gust of wind against a rooftop seems sharper than before. Along the central lanes, the few remaining lanterns burn low, some flickering as if struggling to stay alive. Their weak circles of light leave long strips of darkness between houses, places where shadows stretch and curl like living things. The watchmen know these gaps well. They have learned that trouble grows fastest in the dark spaces between lanterns, those narrow breaths of night where the flame cannot reach. The watch captain moves slowly now. His voice is quieter. The weight of the night has settled on his shoulders, pressing on him like a heavy mantle. He checks doors, glances down narrow alleys, and listens for the faintest sound. His men follow behind, equally tired, equally wary. They do not complain, but the exhaustion in their footsteps speaks for them. They have been walking since sundown. Their bones ache, their eyes burn. Near the baker's shop, the captain kneels to examine a disturbance in the dirt. Footprints, faint but fresh, leading toward a shed. He studies them with narrowed eyes. They are too light for the earlier brawlers and too small for the hooded man who threatened the woman. These tracks belong to someone careful, someone who walks with purpose. He touches the ground and feels the cold stillness of the night lingering there. The thief is close. He straightens and signals his men to spread out. They move toward the surrounding houses, lanterns lifted. Their shadows stretch across walls and doorways, climbing upward like dark vines. But the thief is nowhere in sight. He is already far from this place, hidden in the loft above the tanner's workshop, breathing hard as he presses himself flat against the cold floorboards. Inside the loft, the thief remains motionless. His clothes cling wetly to his skin, soaked from the filthy trench he crawled through. His hands tremble not from fear alone, but from cold. He listens with sharpened attention to the sounds outside, the steady steps of watchmen passing below, the rustle of straw as wind slips through a broken shutter, and the faint echo of a dog barking somewhere near the square. He dares not move yet. He knows the watch will search the lower streets, the sheds, the small yards behind houses. They will look for signs of forced doors, for scuffed dirt, for anything out of place. And though he escaped the captain's sight, he knows the man well enough to expect that he will search again. Not tonight perhaps, but tomorrow and the night after, until the thief makes one mistake too many. As he lies there, his body slowly warming, he thinks about the jewelry he nearly stole, a pouch of gold and colored glass worth months of food. Yet taking it would have destroyed him. The watch captain sees everything, even in darkness. The man has a way of reading shadows as if they speak to him. There is no escaping a pair of eyes like that forever. Elsewhere in town, another kind of movement begins. After curfew, those who break the rules become bolder. A servant slips out of a side door carrying a small bucket. Her master has asked her to fetch water from the far well because he fears the wolves outside the gate. She walks quickly, frightened, her lantern held so close to her chin that its heat warms her breath. Down another lane, an elderly man makes his way home from the healers. He moves carefully, one hand braced against the wall, each step taken with caution. The night is no friend to old bones or failing sight. He stops every few feet to listen. When he hears a footstep behind him, he freezes. But it is only a cat, slipping around a barrel before vanishing into darkness. Near the church, a group of watchmen gather briefly to discuss the recent events. They talk about the wolves, about the fight in the street, and about the faint sounds they heard near the square. The captain tells them to keep their lanterns high and their eyes sharp. He reminds them that the night tests the town every time it falls. The oldest watchman nods slowly, knowing the truth of these words. Night does not rest. Night only shifts its shape. Far from the watch, a different kind of trouble gathers. 3 young men, too restless to stay in bed, too foolish to understand danger, sneak from their homes and move toward the stable yard. They whisper about a rumor they heard earlier, that a thief has been seen in town, one who steals from the wealthy and disappears into shadows. They speak about him with admiration more than fear. They imagine him as a figure from stories, a rogue who defies rules and escapes without injury. They do not realize how close danger is, nor how a single misstep in the dark can change a life forever. In the loft, the thief hears distant voices, young, careless, unaware. He clenches his teeth and closes his eyes for a moment. He hates that children admire him. He hates that his life of struggle becomes someone else's dream. He moves quietly to the edge of the loft and peeks out through a loose board. Below, the 3 boys move across the yard, giggling quietly. They knock on the wall of the stable, thinking they might catch a glimpse of the thief or find something worth bragging about later. But all they find is cold stone and restless horses. The thief watches them with a tight jaw. He remembers being their age, hungry, curious, desperate for something to believe in. But the night cured him of that. It taught him that survival is not glorious. It is ugly, cold and hard. He waits until the boys move on before he releases a slow breath. Near the inner gate, the watch captain pauses. He tilts his head and looks towards the tanner's loft. Something makes him uneasy, though he cannot say why. Maybe it is the faint smell of damp earth still lingering in the air, sharp, unpleasant, and familiar enough to catch his attention. Maybe it is the subtle shift of the wind, bringing with it the echo of footsteps he cannot see. Or maybe it is simply the way the night feels now, stretched thin after so many disturbances. He signals to his nearest man. Together they walk toward the workshop, lanterns lifting shadows along the wall. The horses in the stable stir nervously at their approach. One snorts and stamps its hoof. The captain pauses at the entrance and listens. Nothing. No footsteps, no movement, no voice. Only the distant hum of wind. Still, he senses something above. He steps aside and studies the roofline. The loft window is open just a crack, but that alone is not unusual. The tanner often leaves it open for the fumes to escape. The younger watchman asks if they should search inside. The captain considers it for a long moment. His lantern flickers, sending its glow up the wooden wall. He feels the weight of the night pressing harder. He feels exhaustion in his bones. He feels the silence watching him. Finally, he shakes his head. "Not tonight," he murmurs. "We've chased him enough for one night, and dawn is close enough." The younger man nods, relieved, and the two guards return to their patrol. Their lantern light fades. In the loft above them, the thief exhales quietly. His whole body shakes, not from the cold now, but from the closeness of danger. One more step, one more breath, and the captain would have found him. He lies back down, pulling his damp cloak around him. He waits for his breathing to slow. The town grows even quieter. The wind softens. A few distant dogs bark briefly, then fall silent again. The darkest hour of night, when all things hide, all things wait, wraps itself around the town. The thief closes his eyes. He knows this calm is not real. It is only the brief stillness before dawn begins its slow approach. The most dangerous moment of the night is the moment just before the sky begins to lighten, when people believe trouble is finished. But the night is not finished. Not yet. And outside, in the cold lanes and quiet squares, something else has begun to stir. Something that will draw the captain, the watchman, and even the thief back into the open before morning breaks. The deepest part of the night has passed, but the darkness has not lifted. Instead, it has settled into a dense, heavy stillness that feels more like a presence than an absence. This is the hour when even the bravest souls hesitate before stepping outside. The hour when the air grows colder, sharper, and quieter. Not because danger is gone, but because it is gathering itself for one final turn before dawn. The thief lies awake in the loft, shivering beneath his damp cloak. His body aches from the cold trench, from the relentless climb, from the strain of running on uneven roofs. But sleep will not come. His heart still beats too hard, and the memory of the captain's lantern still flickers behind his eyes. If he sleeps now, he fears he will wake to chains, or not wake at all. He rolls to one side and listens. The loft creaks softly in the breeze. Horses shift below, and in the far distance he hears faint voices calling out to one another. The watch is still working the streets, still searching. The night has kept them restless. He presses his ear to the floorboards. The stable below is quiet, except for one horse who stamps occasionally, disturbed by the lingering smell of wolves on the wind. The thief whispers to himself, "Just one more hour, maybe two. Then the sky will begin to grow pale, and the watch will retreat. He only needs to outlast the dark." Across town, the watch captain also lies awake. Not in a bed, but on a bench inside the small guard room near the inner gate. He removed his helmet, set aside his staff, and allowed himself a moment to rest his eyes. But rest does not come. He sits up again, rubbing his temples. His men sleep in shifts around him, one snoring softly, another leaning against the wall with his chin on his chest. The captain stares at the candle on the table. Its flame trembles, close to burning out. The wax has run down so far that it pools at the base, forming thick ridges that resemble melted bones. He thinks of the thief, not with hatred, but with a strange sense of inevitability. The town pushes people into the shadows. Hunger drives them. Misfortune traps them. He wonders how many steps lie between the life he lives and the life the thief endures. Fewer than people believe, he suspects. Outside, the wind begins to shift. It comes from the west now, colder, carrying a scent that chills the captain more than the night air does. Smoke. Not fresh smoke from hearths and chimneys, but something older, darker, like a dying flame smouldering beneath damp wood. He stands and calls to his nearest watchman. They step outside. The square appears empty. The windows dark. But the wind carries the faint smell again. A warning, subtle but unmistakable. In a town of wooden roofs and tightly packed homes, fire is a nightmare. A single spark can leap from one building to another, swallowing entire streets before anyone can react. The captain stiffens. His tired eyes sharpen. He follows the scent, moving quietly through the square. The watchmen behind him lift their lanterns, sending pale light across the stones. Their steps echo in the silence. The smell grows stronger near the lower market, then stronger still near the cooper's shop. Finally, they find the source. A thin wisp of smoke curls from the narrow gap beneath the butcher's awning. At first, it looks harmless, a trick of the wind. But when the captain kneels and presses his hand to the side of the building, he feels heat. Not enough to burn him, but enough to warn him. The butcher's shop is smouldering from inside. He stands immediately. "Wake the bucket crew," he orders. "Now." The two nearest watchmen sprint toward the central square, where a pair of large water barrels sit beneath the bell tower. They shout as they go, rousing neighbors from sleep. Within minutes, shutters open, doors swing wide, and a dozen people spill into the street. Some carry buckets. Some bring blankets. Some simply come because fear has pushed them from their beds. Fire is the one danger no one can ignore. The captain pounds on the butcher's door. "Open!" he shouts. "Fire in your walls!" No answer. He shouts again, louder. Still nothing. A neighbor runs forward and says the butcher sleeps deeply, his hearing nearly gone from years of shouting over cleavers and chopping blocks. The captain orders two men to break the door. They strike the heavy wood with a beam taken from a nearby stall. The impact echoes through the street. On the third strike, the door bursts inward. A wave of hot air escapes, not enough to burn, but enough to warn everyone that something dangerous has begun inside. The captain steps through the doorway. He covers his mouth and nose with his sleeve. Smoke hangs low, crawling along the ceiling beams like dark fog. Inside the shop, a small fire burns in the corner, where the butcher keeps scraps for rendering. The coals have spread to the stacked firewood beside it. The fire is not large, not yet. But it is growing. He calls for water. Two watchmen run forward with brimming buckets and douse the embers. Steam rises in a sharp hiss. More water follows, splashing across the floor, soaking the wood and putting out the last glowing sparks. The captain steps back into the street, inhaling the cold night air. People gather around him, anxious, whispering about the near disaster. A fire would have destroyed the entire lane. Many lives could have been lost. The butcher finally stumbles out, confused and half asleep, coughing into his apron. When he learns what happened, he sinks onto a stool, head in his hands. He mutters that he must have forgotten to fully snuff the coals. He apologizes over and over. But the captain frowns. He looks again at the scrap pile where the flames began. Something is wrong. The coals seemed too widely spread. The firewood looked disturbed, and there was a faint smell beneath the smoke. Not just burned wood, but something oily, something spilled. Someone had been there. Someone had knocked the coals loose. Someone had nearly burned the shop, and perhaps the entire town. The watch captain straightens. The thief. But no, the thief is clever, but not violent, not reckless, not destructive. This kind of fire is the work of someone else, perhaps someone desperate, careless, or malicious. The captain senses the night shifting again, tightening like a net. He orders his men to search the surrounding streets for signs of recent passage, tracks, dropped items, anything. As the watch fans out, the thief rises slowly in the loft, sensing danger in the air. He cannot see the fire from where he hides, but he hears the shouts, the rush of feet, the panic creeping through the town. His instincts sharpen. Fires bring suspicion. Suspicion brings searches. Searches bring discovery. He moves toward the window, peering out through the slanted gap. Down below, watchmen run past with water buckets and torches. Neighbors gather in clumps, whispering loudly. The atmosphere feels heavier now, more urgent, more chaotic. The thief's heart sinks. Another threat has entered the night. One he did not create, one he cannot predict. And fire, even when extinguished, does not leave quietly. It leaves fear. Fear is more dangerous than wolves, more unpredictable than thieves, and more powerful than curfew laws. Fear travels fast. And before sunrise comes, fear will put someone in danger. Someone who may not deserve it. Someone who may be the easiest target the town can find. The town no longer feels like the same place it had been just hours earlier. Fear has seeped into the very air, mixing with smoke, cold wind, and the leftover tension from fights, thefts, and the wolves at the gate. Even though the fire at the butcher's shop is out, its memory clings to everyone who smelled it, an invisible reminder that the night is still dangerous, still unpredictable, still awake. People do not return to bed immediately. They linger in the streets, wrapped in cloaks and blankets, whispering to one another about what might have caused the fire. Some insist it was only an accident. Others swear they saw someone slipping into the alley earlier. A few blame the wolves, which makes no sense at all. But fear rarely listens to reason. Fear looks for easy explanations, and even easier targets. The watch captain stands in the middle of the lane, lantern raised, eyes sharp. He listens to every rumor but trusts none of them. He knows the fire was not natural. He knows the coals did not scatter themselves. And he knows someone was in the butcher's shop long after curfew. That someone might still be moving through the town right now. He speaks quietly to one of the watchmen and orders a wider sweep of the nearby streets. The men obey with renewed urgency, their earlier exhaustion pushed aside by the seriousness of what nearly happened. The captain's face darkens when he remembers how close the fire came to catching the rafters. A little more heat, a little more time, and the entire block would have burned. He thinks of the thief again, quick, clever, resourceful. But a fire is not the thief's way. A thief steals quietly. A fire destroys loudly. These are not the same hands at work. Still, the captain cannot shake the sense that all the trouble tonight feels strangely connected, like pieces of a single restless pattern shifting beneath the streets. He turns towards the stable yards and the workshops beyond, scanning the rooftops. He does not see a figure crouched in the shadows of the loft, watching him with wary eyes, but he feels the presence. Somewhere above, somewhere close. The thief is waiting, breathing, hiding. While the watch spreads out, the townspeople begin to drift back into their homes. Doors close softly, windows shut, latches click. But sleep will not come easily for them now. Even behind walls, they feel the tremble of unease. Far from the commotion, on the narrow road leading toward the cooper's shop, one woman does not return inside. She stands with her lantern held low, her eyes fixed on the distant glow of light where the fire was put out. Her husband is a carpenter, whose workshop sits only 2 buildings away from the butcher's. If the fire had spread, their home would have been lost. Her hands shake slightly as she wraps her cloak tighter. She remembers hearing footsteps earlier, quiet ones, quick ones, passing behind her house just before the alarm. She thought nothing of it then. But now that memory sinks into her chest like a weight. She wants to tell someone, but doubt holds her tongue. Footsteps mean nothing in a town full of movement, and the watch is already stretched thin. She turns to go inside when a soft sound stops her. A child's cry. Thin, muffled, frightened. She lowers her lantern and follows the sound to the edge of the lane. There, behind a stack of firewood, sits a small boy clutching a torn blanket. His cheeks are streaked with dirt, and his eyes glisten with tears. She kneels immediately. "What are you doing out here?" she whispers, lifting the lantern higher to see him better. The boy shakes his head again and again, but cannot form words. His body trembles from cold and fear. She wraps her cloak around him. "Come, child. You shouldn't be outside." But when she lifts him, something falls from his hand, a small cloth pouch. It hits the stones with a soft clink, the unmistakable sound of metal inside. She freezes. The boy's trembling grows worse. Carefully, she picks up the pouch. It is lighter than she expects, but she knows the sound of coins. The pouch is too well made for a child to own. Too neat, too new, too expensive. "Where did you get this?" she asks in a whisper. He only shakes his head. In the distance, the watch captain's lantern light moves steadily down the road, approaching slowly. The woman hesitates. She looks at the child, the fear on his face, the dirt on his cheek, the thinness of his arms. She looks at the pouch, the neatly tied string, the faint smell of spice on the cloth. She knows what it means. She knows what the watch will assume if they find him holding it. A thief. A boy thief. Someone to punish. Someone to catch. Someone to blame. The woman remembers the stories from earlier in the night. The fight near the tavern, the wolves at the gate, the robbery in the lane, the near fire. People are scared. Scared people grow desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. She hears the captain's boots getting closer. The child presses his face into her cloak. She lifts the pouch again and feels its weight. And then she makes her choice. She hides the pouch beneath the firewood, pushing it deep between the stacked logs. She covers it with a loose board. The metal sound disappears. The pouch vanishes from sight. Then she lifts the child into her arms and carries him toward her door. When the captain approaches, lantern held high, she turns calmly to face him. "Is everything all right?" he asks. The woman nods. "This boy was crying outside. I'm taking him in for the night. He seems lost." The captain studies her face, then studies the child. The child does not look up. He holds the blanket tightly, his small hands barely visible. The captain softens. A lost child in the night is a sad thing indeed. Take him inside quickly. There has already been too much danger tonight. She nods again. "I will." The captain moves on, his lantern drifting away. Inside her home, the woman sets the boy by the fire. She gives him warm broth, wipes his cheeks, and covers him with blankets. He says only one thing before falling asleep. "I didn't do it." She brushes his hair lightly. "I know." But she does not know. She only knows he is a child, and the night is cruel. Back in the loft, the thief continues to watch the streets. He has seen the woman carry the child inside. He saw the captain pass by. He saw the tension spread like smoke through the lanes. He knows that danger now wears a different face, one shaped not by wolves, brawlers, or even fire. Danger now comes from fear itself. Fear of thieves. Fear of shadows. Fear of anything that moves in the night. And fear, once awakened, does not sleep again easily. He curls into his cloak and waits for dawn, aware that the night has just taught him something vital and unsettling. Among all the threats hiding in darkness, the most unpredictable one is the human heart when it tries to make sense of fear. And the night still has enough time left for fear to lead someone into a terrible mistake. The sky remains completely dark, but the air has changed. It carries a faint tension, a charged stillness that settles over rooftops and narrow lanes like a warning no one can see, but everyone can feel. Only a few hours remain before dawn, yet those hours often hold the most dangerous moments of the entire night. People are tired, nerves are stretched thin, fear has been stirred again and again, and now it sits inside every home, every whisper, every cautious step. The watch captain moves down the main lane with heavier boots than before. His lantern glows weakly, its flame burning low after long hours of use. He notices the flame shrinking, but pushes the thought aside. He has no time to change it. The town has been restless all night, and though the fire is out, something else unsettles him, something he cannot yet name. His men look exhausted. One rubs his eyes constantly. Another keeps glancing back toward the square, as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. A third mutters quietly about how the night feels wrong, as if waiting for a final blow. The captain quiets them, but he shares the feeling. The night is not finished. Not yet. Across town, in a small room lit by a nearly spent candle, the woman who took in the lost boy watches him sleep. His trembling has stopped. His breathing has steadied. She sits next to him, wondering where he wandered from, wondering who is searching for him, wondering what fear drove him into the street alone. She has not yet decided what to do with the pouch she hid. It sits between the firewood outside, pressed into the shadows where no one will find it by accident. It feels like a weight now, a secret she did not ask for. She rises quietly and fastens the door. The sound of the bar sliding into place comforts her, but only a little. Somewhere far from the warmth of her hearth, the thief crouches near the loft window again. He has not slept. He knows better than to rest while the watch patrols so close. His clothes have begun to dry, though they stiffen with cold. Every breath he takes feels sharp and hollow, as if the air itself is colder than before. He listens to the muted sounds of the town, soft, distant, uneasy. He thinks about leaving, slipping out of the loft, escaping beyond the walls, disappearing into the forest until things settle. He has done it before. It is always safer outside during times of suspicion than inside the walls. But tonight, the forest holds wolves, and the wolves hold hunger. He cannot risk them, so he waits. The captain's lantern light appears briefly in the yard below. The thief pulls back, heart tight, watching from behind a low beam. The captain seems to be listening to the wind again. He walks slowly, cautiously, as if searching for something out of place. Then he looks up. Not directly at the loft window, but toward it, near it. Close enough that the thief feels his lungs freeze in his chest. The captain studies the shadows for a long moment, his brow furrowed. His lantern flickers once, twice. For a heartbeat, the flame stretches, throwing light across his face. He looks older tonight, more tired, more burdened. Then he turns away. The thief exhales, though the breath trembles out of him. In the streets behind the tanner's shop, a group of watchmen gather after finishing a wide sweep. They trade notes, footprints near the alley, disturbed stones near the well, the sound of running feet near the square. The younger watchman swears he glimpsed someone on a rooftop, but cannot be certain. The others laugh tiredly, saying shadows play tricks at this hour. The captain joins them and listens without interrupting. Then he sends them out once more. No one complains this time. The danger of the fire has shaken them enough to sharpen their sense of duty. They disperse. Their lanterns drift into the night like tiny floating stars. In a cold corner of the town, two arguments can be heard through thin shutters. One between neighbors blaming each other for leaving scraps too close to their door, drawing wolves toward the wall. Another between merchants who accuse one another of hiding contraband. Fear twists into suspicion, suspicion into blame, blame into open hostility. The town is unraveling in small ways. People tell themselves they are safe because they are indoors, behind walls, behind shutters. But the fear is inside with them now, whispering, stirring, scratching lightly at the back of the mind. The woman who sheltered the child hears her husband wake. He enters the room, bleary-eyed, and stops when he sees the boy. She explains quickly and quietly. Her husband listens, frowning. Then he asks the one question she hoped he wouldn't. Why was he out there alone? She shakes her head. I don't know. It could be anything, he says. Or anyone. She knows what he means. A child with a pouch of coins is not simply lost. Someone may have used him. Someone may have frightened him. Someone may be looking for him. Someone who might cause trouble if they don't find him. Her husband rubs his jaw. We should tell the captain. Not yet, she whispers. You're protecting him. I don't know what I'm doing, she admits softly. I only know he is a child. Her husband sighs. The night will judge him if we don't act. She closes her eyes, pained by the truth of it. The night judges harshly. Outside, a watchman's horn blows once, short and sharp. It's not the alarm for fire. It's not the call for wolves. It's the signal meaning. Someone has been spotted. The captain reacts instantly. He runs toward the sound, lanterns swinging wildly. His men appear from the surrounding lanes, drawn by the echo. The thief hears the horn too, and dread tightens around him like a rope. The watchmen gather near the cooper's shop. One of them points toward the corner where a faint movement was seen. They spread out, lanterns casting overlapping circles of trembling gold. A shape moves behind a stack of barrels. The captain steps forward. Then a second shape moves. Something small. Something trembling. The child. The same child from the woman's home. Alone again, staring wide-eyed at the lights and voices, blanket dragging behind him. But the captain doesn't know that. Nor do the watchmen. Nor do the neighbors rushing out with torches. All they see is a child near the place where fire nearly spread, where theft was suspected, where trouble has brewed all night. One watchman kneels. Son, why are you here? He asks gently. The child tries to speak, but fear traps the words in his throat. He shakes his head violently, clutching the blanket. The woman bursts into the lane, breathless, running barefoot. Her husband behind her. She calls out to the watch, but her voice catches. Everyone turns. The captain looks from her to the child, confusion forming into something else. The night holds them all in a long, frozen moment. Fear, misunderstanding, and fragile truth balanced dangerously between them. At this hour, a single wrong assumption can change everything. And dawn is still not here to save them. The moment freezes as if the night itself is holding its breath. The child stands shivering near the barrels, the blanket hanging crooked from his shoulders. His eyes shine with tears he cannot hold back. The woman stops several paces away, hands trembling, hair falling loose from her hurried run. Her husband is behind her, winded, fear written plainly across his face. The watchmen surround the scene in a protective half-circle. Lanterns sway, throwing warm but restless light across the cobblestones. The glow creates deep shadows between the barrels, shadows that seem to pulse with the same uncertainty rising in every adult heart present. The captain steps forward, his expression unreadable. He lowers his lantern until the light rests gently on the child's face. The boy flinches, not from the brightness, but from the authority behind it. The captain looks at the woman. "You said he was inside your home." His tone is calm, but beneath it there is something sharp. Not anger, not accusation. Something closer to disappointment. A feeling like a bridge beginning to crack. I only stepped away for a moment," the woman says. Her breath quivers. "I didn't know he'd run out." The child looks at her with wide, confused eyes. He does not understand her fear for him, nor the fear now held against him. Something inside him seems to shrink deeper, curling into itself. A murmur ripples through the neighbors, who gathered after hearing the watchman's horn. Their whispers float through the air like falling ash. Words dart between them. Quiet, nervous guesses about what the boy might have done, who he might belong to, what he might be hiding. Fear fills the spaces between those whispers, stretching them into quick judgments and imagined dangers. The captain turns back to the child. "What were you doing here?" The boy opens his mouth. No words come. His lower lip trembles once, then again. He clutches the blanket tighter, burying half his face into the worn fabric. One watchman steps closer. "Where are your parents?" The boy shakes his head so hard his hair swings. He presses his back against the barrels, trying to make himself small. The woman steps forward. "Please," she says urgently. "He's frightened. He's just a child." Another neighbor mutters, "Children steal too." A second whispers, "Fire starts small." A third voice, a shaky one, says, "This night's been cursed. Look what's happened already." Fear gathers between the townspeople like a thick fog. It does not matter that the child looks terrified. It does not matter that nothing has been proven. Fear does not wait for proof. It hunts weak shadows. And children make very small shadows indeed. The captain raises a hand, quieting the murmurs without saying a word. His presence alone steadies the crowd. For the first time tonight, he allows the exhaustion on his face to soften his sternness. He kneels in front of the boy and speaks more gently this time. "What is your name?" The child whispers something so soft, even the captain can barely hear it. The boy repeats it louder, voice cracking. It is a simple name, an ordinary one, belonging to no known troublemaker, no known family of thieves. "Who were you with?" the captain asks. The boy looks down. His small fingers tighten around the blanket. Then, barely audible, he says, "Nobody." That single word cuts through the captain in a way no brawl, no thief, no wolf outside the gate ever could. He recognizes the tone. Loneliness, fear, and hunger are woven into it. The captain stands, slower than usual, as if the weight of the entire night has finally reached his bones. He turns to the woman. "Did he say where he came from?" She shakes her head. "No. Only that he didn't do anything." A faint silence follows, the kind that feels delicate, like a thin thread pulled between too many hands. Then a voice from the back of the crowd breaks it, loud, sharp, pushing the air with suspicion. "Ask him what he dropped." The captain frowns. "Dropped?" Another neighbor steps forward, pointing toward the barrels. "I heard something fall when he moved. Check behind them." The child stiffens. His eyes widen. The woman's breath catches in her throat. She instinctively steps forward, as if to shield him, but stops halfway. She knows what lies behind those barrels. She hid it herself. But she cannot say that now, not without binding her family into danger. Not without pulling suspicion onto her husband and onto herself. The captain signals to one of his men. The watchman steps behind the barrels. The child begins shaking so violently the blanket slips from his hands. The woman's fingers dig into her cloak. Her husband shuts his eyes briefly. The watchman bends down, moves a board aside, and freezes for a moment. Then he stands and turns around, holding the small sack. The drawstring dangles between his fingers. The coins inside make a soft chime when he lifts it. A collective murmur spreads like a breath released. Some gasp quietly. Others nod grimly, as if expecting this outcome. Fear tightens its grip on the crowd again. The watchman hands the pouch to the captain. The captain feels its weight and studies it carefully. Then he looks down at the child. Really looks this time. The boy's legs buckle. He falls to his knees, clutching the blanket. Tears spill freely. His breaths become quick, sharp, stuttering. He shakes his head again and again, unable to speak, unable to defend himself against a world that has grown too large, too loud, too ready to assume the worst. The captain exhales slowly. His jaw tightens. His grip on the pouch loosens slightly. He has seen thieves lie. He has seen adults fake tears and beg for mercy. But the raw fear in this child is different. It is not hiding guilt. It is drowning in terror. The watchmen wait for orders. The neighbors wait for judgment. The woman watches the captain's face, desperate for a sign that he understands. Even the thief, still crouched unseen in the shadows of the loft, feels a strange tightening in his chest as he watches from afar. The captain crouches down again. He sets the pouch on the ground untouched. Then he puts a steadying hand on the child's shoulder. "Listen to me," he says softly. "We're not going to hurt you." The boy sobs harder, but the captain's voice remains calm. "You are not in trouble." The crowd shifts, surprised. Some whisper in disagreement. Others fall silent. The captain raises his voice slightly, firm but controlled. "This pouch may not belong to him. Many things were dropped and moved tonight. Many people ran through these streets. We do not accuse a child without certainty." The murmurs quiet. Respect, reluctant or genuine, returns to the group. The captain stands again and addresses the woman. "Take him inside. Lock your door. Keep him warm." She nods, tears in her eyes, and gathers the boy gently in her arms. He clings to her like a lifeline. As she carries him back to her home, the captain lifts the pouch once more. In the lantern glow, he notices something he missed before. The drawstring is torn in a way that suggests it was pulled from a larger hand, not a child's. The fraying matches the string on the money collector's crate. The thief's mark is subtle but recognizable. The child is innocent. The thief watches from afar, understanding the silent recognition in the captain's eyes. They have crossed paths all night like reflections in two different mirrors, one enforcing rules, the other slipping through them. But in this moment, both men understand something deeper than their roles. The dawn finally begins to loosen the sky. Not brightly, not yet, but with a pale hint of grey at the edges of the rooftops. A promise of light, a softening of night's hold. The captain dismisses his men for a moment's rest. He looks once more in the direction of the loft, though he cannot see who hides there. Quietly, almost to himself, he says, "Let the night end without more pain." The thief steps back from the window. He remains hidden, but something inside him loosens, some tension he has carried for years. The boy sleeps safely. The fire is out. The wolves are gone. And the town, bruised and trembling, has survived another night. Dawn creeps over the rooftops, painting the cobblestones with a faint silver glow. The first rooster crows. The watch's lanterns dim. People inside their homes begin to breathe easier. The long, chaotic night finally breaks. And with it, the shadows retreat, not disappearing, only waiting for the next dusk, when chaos will rise again and claim its place in the medieval dark.